Well, Dan was a man of about, his late 20s, probably 28, 29. And he still lived at home with his mom and his dad because he worked in the family business. And one day his dad came to him and said, Dan, I'm going to make my transition one of these days, and so I want you to be prepared for that. And you've been part of the business, it's worth about $200 million. And so Dan decided, started thinking about that, and then he decided, I really want to get a wife to share my good fortune with. We've been fortunate in this business, and I want to share it with someone special. So, he was a part of this investment club. It was a pretty large group, had different people joining or coming to meetings at different times. And so he went to the investment club meeting, and sure enough, this new girl shows up, and she is beautiful. She's striking, the most beautiful woman he's ever seen in his life. So he went up to her, he thought this has to be destiny. So he went up to her and he said, excuse me, ma'am, you know what, you are very striking, you're very beautiful, and I'd like to go out with you and see if we can connect, because I'm going to inherit $200 million in a few years when my dad makes his transition. And she said, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Why don't you leave me your business card and we'll get together soon. And so in a week, he hadn't heard from her, so he's wondering what was going on. Because he gave her his business card. And by the end of the month, he got the announcement in the mail that his dad was getting married to him. It just goes to show that women are better financial planners than men. Oh, did you get it? Good, yeah. Didn't work out like we thought. Let's say our statements of truth together, please. I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. Well, this morning is going to be a little bit different as far as what I talked about. The title, I don't remember the title of the lesson. What is it? Love or something? Can you say it? Can you say it? Yeah, thank you. You read the thing going on. Can you say it? It's about love. And if you read the little synopsis about it, it's can you say it? And the words are, I love you, is what can you say? I love you. Well, this lesson, of course, started before all this stuff happened in Kansas City and Unity Village to us. So I'm going to add that little bit twist to it. But I'm also going to add some other stories, so if you don't like stories, sorry, this lesson isn't for you, because it's nothing but stories, essentially. And it's about Josh Hamilton, baseball player. I used to update you a couple of years ago. It's about John Wayne. I think most everybody knows who John Wayne was, and it's about my experience with Grace. And so, but it all hinges around an old story, like I hope we all know, that any story or anything that happens in our life is still in the Bible. It's in the Bible in some way, shape, or form, and it's the same story that I was going to talk about anyway before all this stuff happened. And the main verse in it is 13:13 from Corinthians, and there it is, 1 Corinthians 13:13, and it says, the main one I want to talk about is, and now abideth faith, hope, love, these three. But the greatest of these three is love. And I'm sure that everybody's heard that before. But I want to start with the whole, I want to read the whole chapter to you. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you the stories that we're going to talk about. Francie told you a little bit about what happened with Grace and us this weekend, but you have John Wayne or Josh Hamilton next. John Wayne, as you know, was a very famous actor. He was my favorite. He was a role model for me when I was growing up. He's my favorite actor still, even though he's been dead for quite a while, or he made his transition. But he only died in 2 movies. One of those movies, and that's how much of a hero he was in American culture. One of the movies was The Cowboys, and I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was a movie near the end of his career. And when he was dying, it took him all night to die, but when he was dying, the boys that he had led on this roundup was around him and knew that he was dying, and he said, I love you to all of them. He said, I love each and every one of you. And the significance, and the significance for that, for him, was that he got choked up, didn't he? I mean, he couldn't hide that in the movie. So they kept that in the movie, and he got choked up over it. Because in our culture, for most of us, now it's gotten easier, it's gotten better, I understand. But in our culture, my age, you're probably parents with me. Maybe you look older. It's harder to say I love you. Because when we say that, it's like it's a bond between who you're saying it with. A bond that can never be broken. And so that's why when John Wayne said it, even to those fellow actors, they were young actors, but when he said it to those fellow actors, he still got choked up. He could do nothing but. Josh Hamilton, I want you to remember him too. If you remember, a couple of years ago I was updating him because of his history, well known in sports, about how he has had mainly alcohol, but drug addiction throughout his life. And he was this great talent. I'm going to refresh you a little bit. He was this great talent that everybody in Major League Baseball knew that if he stayed off the drugs, he'd be great. But when he got drafted, he couldn't stay off the drugs, and so he was cut, and the Texas Rangers took a chance on him. And the Texas Rangers, which happens to be my team, but the Texas Rangers had this idea, you know what, we're going to put somebody with this guy. We're going to pay somebody. His job is going to be to just look out for Josh Hamilton. Well, Josh Hamilton, it worked pretty darn good for him. I mean, he didn't really care for, somebody being around with him all the time, but he figured, this is for my best good, and it's intended for that, and it was intended for that. You give any of us, if we had a lot of money, if we're paying somebody millions of dollars a year, we want to, get that investment back. So they did that, and he had a very successful career with the Texas Rangers. In fact, when he was traded, kind of stolen, if you ask me, by the California Angels, when his contract came due, he signed for a lot of money. He was at the top of his game. He was the best ball player in the game at the time, 2 years ago. And so the Angels signed him for something like $500 million for 4 years. And so it's an ungodly amount. And as baseball pays, he was worth it. But once he got to the Angels, they said, you're a grown boy. You don't need anybody hanging out with you. You just go take care of yourself and do what we're paying you to do. Well, it didn't work out too well. But the first year he was there, he did pretty good, but he was back to an average player instead of the superstar that he was with the Rangers. And he had, the same MO as before, glimpses of greatness, but he wasn't consistent. And so last year, he was hurt a lot, and the Angels owner got kind of upset with him and said, we paid you all this money, you need to be performing. And that wasn't the tack to take with him, at least, because he felt like he wasn't wanted anymore, like some of us can get too, when we hear that from somebody who's important to us. And so he was hurt and started off this year hurt, and the owner said some things that he shouldn't have said, to be quite honest, to anybody, but he said them because he was mad. And so he essentially gave back Josh Hamilton to the Texas Rangers. Nobody else really in baseball wanted him this year, because he'd fallen off the wagon and got himself in trouble. But he wasn't violent when he fell off the wagon. He was just violent to himself, really, essentially, because you don't do that to yourself. But anyway, so he came back, and he's been with the Rangers for 2 months now, and he's already started doing great. Last week he had a great week, and they're going to, in fact, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he was AL Player of the Week, because he had some great stats last week. So anyway, he continues. That's the other story I want to talk about. And great, so that's 3. But at first, I want to read you this, because the context of verse 13:13 in 1 Corinthians, you have to know what we're talking about. And it says this. I'm going to kind of go slow through this, because I want all this to sink in. This is a Schofield Bible, so it gives comments on before the chapters. It was one of the first ones that started giving comments instead of just verbatim, not verbatim, but just what the text is. In this chapter, it says, ministry gifts must be exercised in love. First verse says in chapter 13, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not love, I am become as a sounding bronze or a tinkling cymbal. Which means I'm just making noise. Okay? So you know the old verses. That's good. Verse 2 says, and though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it profits me nothing. This one you'll know too. Love suffereth long and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself. I know Francie just cringes when I say those old words, but anyway. Doth not believe itself unseemingly, seeketh not its own, is not easily provoked, thinking no evil. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Excuse me, it's because my mouth is dry. Verse 7. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Love never faileth. But whether there be prophecies, they shall be done away. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror darkly, but then, face to face, clearly. Now I know in part, but then I shall know, even as I am known. And then there's verse 13. And now abideth faith, hope, love. These three, but the greatest of these is love. Now, I know that you all have heard, and we use not this exact verse, but a similar verse in weddings all the time, describing love, what love is. And we describe that because a lot of people, at least in Unity, at least the weddings that I have officiated, I always ask what the couple want to have in there, but they pick that often. And it's because it's something that we should keep in our minds about what love is and what love is not. Love isn't a partial thing. You can't love somebody halfway. You love somebody all the way. And the 12th verse, when we see, for now we see in a mirror darkly. It's just when we're seeing part of things and we see darkly. But when we open our eyes, then we can see fully. Not only to love somebody else, but to love ourselves and to see ourselves as we are, a child of God. We say those statements every week. I am a child of God. And the rest is deserving, and the rest is something that we do, but the first one, I am a child of God. If we take that and we know that for ourselves, and we actually see that in ourselves, then we will truly love ourselves. And in that, we cannot do anything but love another. We can't love ourselves fully without loving other people. You can't. You know, I brag about you guys all the time when I'm somewhere else. And here's why. There's a lot of reasons why. But here's the one I like to use, is because a big thing in Unity for the last, 15 years has been diversity. And I always ask my students that come in front of me, I said, every one of them I ask, what's your idea of diversity? And I'll get a wide range of things. The ones that are seen halfway will say, well, my congregation, if I have a diverse congregation, will look like 20% African American, 20% Hispanic, 20% this, 20% that. And when those answers come to me, they miss the question. But by far, most of them understand what diversity is. It has nothing to do with the color or the look of someone on the outer. It has all to do with the inner. When we look at the outer, then we're only looking part way. We're not looking fully at the person. Do you see that? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good. So regrettably, I do mark them down on that one. But thankfully, most of them do not say that. There were a couple this time, but anyway, so, you know, the famous, this course was written by Paul, the first letter to the Corinthians. And Paul, for the most part, was a great writer and did, throughout all of his ministry, tried his best to give the same teaching that Jesus was teaching. But remember, he gave it through his interpretation, so some of this stuff was actually incorrect. But most of this stuff was correct. It was seeing fully. It was looking through love's eyes. He loved himself enough to know that in order to love myself, I have to be able to love others. And you know, love, of course, when you bring up love in a church, we all know what we're talking about. But in the secular world, you know, sometimes when we bring up love, we can have it mean different things. But that's only seen partly when we do that. If Josh Hamilton is given on the Texas Rangers, if they are giving that person to be with him, to protect him, only as a protection of their investment, then they are seeing partially. I hope that we can just, you know, when we do take actions in our life, do whatever we're doing when it involves anything, but in our Western culture, especially money, then it comes from love. Whatever you do, even if you don't feel it at the time as far as what you're spending your money on, give it with love anyway. You know, I don't know if I've told this story before. There was when we lived in Wichita, Kansas, many, many years ago, there was these people, you know how the firefighters have the boots, they stand at the corner sometimes and have the boots. Well, you know what that's for. Well, so, you know, usually you just give some money to those things. You know it's going for a good cause and you're giving it in that manner. Well, one day at a busy intersection, there was a group of people, and so I gave some money. And then later, I don't know if it was that day or some other day soon after, the news came on and said, you know, it was being given to a group that I would not have given money to. But here's the difference, a big difference, is I gave that money in love. If they use that money for a halfway love, that's on them. And it's not that I'm saying that that they're wrong, I'm just saying that I gave it in love. And if they're giving it only in half love and I give it in full love, what's that make? Come on, mathematicians, that means that they're giving at least in 3/4 love. Somebody else give it to them, they'll give it all love. We'll get there. So I want you to know that during this thing with Grace, you know, Francie and I, of course, were up and down on a roller coaster, and I did want to be clear. When Francie said that the Unity Village Police like us well and knew us well, doesn't mean professionally, that they just knew us as ministers, okay? And I worked there a long time. So they didn't arrest me at any time I was there. But yeah, it would be. So, but they were very, very helpful, and you know, that was when we. It was all a group of events that happened, and so when that happens, you know, when you've tied yourself to someone with love, you know, sometimes it's hard to separate. But to be quite honest, that's all personality. That's me and my personality getting in the way of pure love a little bit. Because if I truly love somebody, what do we all know? When we truly love somebody that we're raising, at some point, what are we going to do? We got to let go. A lot of you have been through that. Heck, I've been through it with my other kids, and I still haven't learned the lesson. So I guess I can look forward to that being the last child out of the house, to to know that that's the last time I have to make it feel that way. But yeah, I know it's not. Don't do that to me right now. Wait till I'm after service, okay? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to love them less. We all, or a lot of y'all have children and know that we don't. I'm going to speak for myself, and I think I'll be in line with you all. When we give advice as far as what to do and what not to do, we're not doing it to punish them, to stop them from having some fun. We're doing it to protect them. And at times, you know, teenagers know more than anybody in the world, and they have to go through that sometimes, as much as we don't want them to. But what we can do is be there and love them. What we can do is always be open to them. Always be receptive to them in love. And so really, you know, for me, they always say when we get together as ministers, I don't really care for it, but they always say it, and I don't care for it because it's true, darn it. They always say that the lesson that you're going to give is a lesson that you need to learn. And this one couldn't be any more true for me. So, because like I said before, I started this lesson before that happened. But I know that I already knew the truth of the matter. That love is what needs to be at all times. I do want to finish with one other story. Being raised in unity, I knew love was the most important thing. In fact, I was very, very, very adamant about love will see you through everything. And then when we started having problems with our very first daughter, you know, she did things that I thought, why in the world would you do that? I've given you all my love. How can you do that to yourself? It doesn't hurt me. I mean, maybe they were trying to hurt me, I don't know, but it doesn't, well, it does hurt me, I guess, in the way that you know, why? But this is the deal about that. When we actually see someone and love someone for them, whether they're family or not, when you hurt, I do hurt. There's a reason for that. It's because I do love you. And if we all felt that way toward one another in the whole world, we obviously wouldn't have any wars. We couldn't really have that many disagreements. And if we did, we could sit down and talk about them because we love each other. So in closing, I want you to know that you all are a strength for me. I love each and every one of you, and so does Francie. And I appreciate each and every one. Thank you.
In the morning when you rise, do you open up your eyes, see what I see? Do you see the same things every day? Do you try to find a way, try to start the day, try to put things in proportion, spread the news that'll help the world Have you heard of a time that'll help us get it together again? Have you heard of a word that'll stop us going wrong? Well, the time is near, and the word you'll hear when you get things in perspective. Spread the news that'll help the world get it together again. Have you heard of a word that'll stop us going wrong? Well, the time is near, and the word you'll hear when you get things in perspective. Spread the news that'll help the world go round. There's a time, and the time is now, and it's right for me. It's right for me, and the time is now. There's a word, and the word is love, and it's right for me. It's right for me, and the word is love. There's a time, and the time is now, and it's right for me. It's right for me, and the time is now. There's a word, and the word is love, and it's right for me. It's right for me, and the word is love. There's a time, and the time is now, and it's right for me. It's right for me, and the time is now. There's a word, and the word is love, and it's right for me. It's right for me, and the word is love.
Perfect song. Thank you, that was beautiful. All right, so it is our time for giving and receiving. And for those of you that are new, we have prosperity bowls at the door that we put our offerings or tithes in. And we don't pass a bowl or bag or plate. And so we take our love and our offering together and bless it.
Let's say together, divine love.
Flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. And we sing.
3, 4, give.